Hello everyone, a very good morning and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep. Welcome to our daily Hindu analysis. Before we start, don't forget our Target Prelims 2023 crash course is going on the BYJU'S Exam Prep app. The second phase has begun already on the 9th of March. We are almost completing 2 weeks of the second phase of the crash course. So I urge all of you to take a look at the schedule for the third and fourth week. So please download the BYJU'S Exam Prep app and attend these free classes which will help you prepare for all the current affairs topics for the upcoming prelims. So let's get started with the analysis of today's The Hindu newspaper by looking at the key topics that we are going to discuss today. First, we are going to talk about few important articles where we are going to carry out a detailed analysis. Following this, we shall take a look at few prelims related topics which are present in today's newspaper. So before we begin, don't forget to support us by pressing the like button, share your comments if you're liking our initiatives, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. And also, as soon as the session ends, directly head to our Telegram channel for a quiz on all these topics so you can revise and prepare for these topics accordingly. So the link for the Telegram channel also has been given in the description. So let's start with the first article for today, which deals with the topic of deep ocean exploration. If you guys remember, just a couple of weeks back, on the 5th of March, in our Hindu analysis, I had discussed a very important topic in detail. We had spoken about China's deep ocean exploration missions. We were discussing how China has expanded its deep ocean exploration missions in the Pacific and is also looking at similar missions in the Indian Ocean. We had covered in detail the objective of China's deep ocean missions and how China has deployed submersible vessels which can dive to a depth of almost 10,000 meters. China has managed to reach out to the depths of the Mariana Trench, which happens to be the deepest point on the seabed. And Chinese vessels, which are manned submersible vessels, have reached out to the deepest parts of the ocean. Very few countries have these capabilities. We had even spoken about the popular movie maker James Cameron and his Deep Sea Challenger mission, through which he had carried out a dive through a manned submersible vessel at Challenger Deep, which is located near Guam, the Pacific island. The island of Guam is also in news for another reason. At this important island called Guam in the Pacific, currently a military exercise is underway called Exercise Sea Dragon. This exercise is hosted by the US Navy. And just a couple of days ago, the P-8I Poseidon aircraft of the Indian Navy, which we have procured from the US itself, has reached the Guam naval base of the US to take part in anti-submarine warfare operations. The P-8 Poseidon aircraft we have procured from the US, it is mainly used for maritime surveillance and it's called a submarine hunter because of its anti-submarine warfare capabilities. So just because this island is present in the map, I thought I would mention this point as well. The Sea Dragon is a naval exercise, essentially, organized by the US Navy. Even Japan and Canada are taking part in it. And Indian Navy has deployed the P-8I Poseidon to jointly take part in these anti-submarine warfare operations. So just from a prelims point of view, you should know why the Guam Island is important. This is where US has a major military base and India's P-8I Poseidon aircraft that we have procured from US has been deployed for this maritime exercise. Now coming back to the topic. So on 5th of March, we had studied the deep ocean missions of China and few other countries as well. I had covered this topic in complete detail. If you want, you can go back and watch this analysis as well. So related to this, there is an important article in today's newspaper that talks about India's own deep ocean mission. On the 5th of March as well, we had discussed India's deep ocean mission, but today we have more details, more interesting and exciting details. The deep ocean mission of India is called the Samudrayaan mission. It's quite similar to our Gaganyaan mission. It's a complement of the Gaganyaan mission, if you look at it. If ISRO is looking to send astronauts into orbit through the Gaganyaan mission, which would be India's first manned space flight, similarly, the NIOT, the National Institute of Ocean Technology, is implementing the Samudrayaan mission to deploy an Indian crew to the depths of the Indian Ocean, to a depth of around 6,000 meters in the Indian Ocean to carry out a deep ocean exploration. So this mission acquires a lot of significance with regard to our prelims and even with regard to our mains. This is where you need to understand why deep sea exploration or deep ocean exploration is important. Why is India pursuing this mission? What are the key objectives? What are the challenges we are going to face? And what's the mission profile? And you should be familiar with the key details regarding the Samudrayaan mission. All these points are very important for not just your prelims, but also a possible mains question. See, deep sea or deep ocean exploration has today acquired a lot of significance, global significance. And in fact, it has become a matter of prestige to execute these complex missions. These missions, they even have a strategic value because very few countries have been able to reach the depths of the ocean, especially beyond 5,000 meters. Beyond 5,000 meters, very few countries have been able to explore these depths of the waters. Countries such as US, China, France, Russia, and Japan, these are the only 5 countries which currently have active deep ocean exploration missions. They've all successfully carried out manned missions at the depths of 5,000 meters and below, reaching almost to 10,000 meters at Mariana Trench. So India is about to enter this elite league. India would become the 6th country in the world, the 6th nation to carry out such a deep exploration mission. The primary purpose is, of course, economic in nature. Deep sea exploration helps in exploring the seabed, and the seabed is blessed with resources. It is blessed with precious minerals, including copper, gold, rare earth elements, etc. You also find something called polymetallic nodules, which are loaded with many precious critical minerals. And this is of great economic value. So countries which have been awarded with mining licenses from the International Seabed Authority, they can carry out such exploration and even plan to exploit these resources. Is that clear? And such exploration missions will also help in understanding the extreme marine environment. At these depths, the environmental conditions are extremely challenging. Beyond 5,000 meters, sunlight usually does not penetrate. It's a region of complete darkness. Plus, there is tremendous water pressure to deal with. At these levels, the water columns above, they exert many times higher pressure than the pressure found at the surface of the water. It will be many 100 times higher. The pressure can even crush a submarine or any other vessel if it is not well designed. So, technologically, executing such a mission is very challenging because you have to build a vessel which can withstand this massive water pressure from the water columns above. Is that clear? Because the safety of the crew is extremely important as these are manned missions. So through these missions, you can not only explore the seabed, the waters, the ecosystem around it, you can study the marine life forms which thrive under these harsh conditions as well. These are almost inhospitable conditions. And even over here, unique life forms can be found. Various research missions from US, China, and even the mission led by James Cameron, they detected the presence of unique marine life forms. So it helps in understanding your marine environment, developing further research in the oceanic domain. This has a lot of significance to understand climate change and natural processes. It could also bring out derivatives for the biotechnology domain. Maybe future medicines, and a lot of commercial value can be derived from the biotechnology-based products that you can extract from the depths of the sea floor. So this has an economic potential as well, plus an environmental angle with regard to conservation and biodiversity protection. Plus, these missions will also help you develop the best strategy to explore the resources, exploit the resources in the most sustainable manner. You can figure out the best possible way to exploit the minerals by causing minimal damage to the marine environment. Because sustainable development is critical when you're exploring and exploiting the resources of the seabed. You have to figure out ways through which you can extract these resources in the future, maybe in the next 15, 20 years, and ensure that this exploitation is minimal in its damage to the environment and the marine biodiversity. So that is why such deep sea exploration missions are extremely crucial. It's a matter of national prestige as it involves complex technology. It also has a strategic angle attached to it. In the world of geopolitics, all the key powers are competing for these resources in their respective exclusive economic zones. They're competing for mining licenses from the International Seabed Authority. And these critical minerals, especially rare earth elements, they clearly have a strategic value considering their application in critical industries. Plus, it has an environmental value as well with regard to understanding the marine environment and protecting and conserving them and ensuring that our exploitation causes minimal damage to the marine environment. So it's in this regard that India has launched its own deep ocean mission called Samudrayaan. Please make a note of this. I'm going to highlight some key points here, factual points. They are very relevant for your prelims. This mission was launched in 2019 by the Ministry of Earth Sciences, under which the National Institute of Ocean Technology has been established. The NIOT was established in the year 1993. It is headquartered in Chennai and it leads all oceanic research from India. It's part of the Ministry of Earth Sciences. This Indian initiative is focusing on exploring the ocean bed and the continental shelf in India's exclusive economic zone. And the prime focus is on the central Indian Ocean basin, which is located near Maldives, around 2,000 kilometers to the south of India. Because in this region, we have won a mining license from the International Seabed Authority. Such deep sea mining is regulated by this international organization called International Seabed Authority. In fact, I had covered this in detail on the 5th of March. So just go back and watch that analysis as well for a deeper understanding. So India has earlier won a mining license in the central Indian Ocean basin region from the International Seabed Authority. India has been allocated an area of around 75,000 square kilometers where we can explore and exploit the polymetallic nodules that might be present on the seabed. So this is the reason why India has come up with the Samudrayaan mission, the deep ocean mission. The primary focus is to launch a manned submersible vehicle which NIOT has been developing along with India's ISRO. ISRO has been helping NIOT in this mission and they are developing a manned submersible vessel through which we can launch crewed and as well as uncrewed missions to explore the seabed. Alright? This will help us map out the resources found on the seabed in the central Indian Ocean basin and look out for polymetallic nodules which are rich in manganese, nickel, cobalt, copper, iron hydroxide and even with regard to rare earth minerals. So this is the reason why it becomes important to know more about Samudrayaan mission and you should know the key features of the submersible vessel which is being built in India. You can see the submersible vehicle over here, this spherical shape object. This is the manned submersible vessel which has been indigenously developed and built by NIOT and ISRO and it has been named as Matsya 6000. This is the name of the submersible vessel that is going to lead the Samudrayaan mission of India. It's going to be a long-term project. It is likely to be deployed in the waters from 2024. By early next year, few unmanned missions will be carried out at lower depths of around 500 to 2000 meters. These are initial exploratory missions to test out the technology and the safety of the vessel. Once this is firmly established, by late 2024 or by early 2025, India will be launching the manned mission where a 3-member crew, 3 research scientists will be on board Matsya 6000 and they will be diving to a depth of 6,000 meters in the central Indian Ocean basin, around 1,500 kilometers south of India, to the south of Sri Lanka and near Maldives. In this area, the manned dive would be conducted by using Matsya 6000. Matsya refers to fish and 6000 here refers to the depth which the vessel is going to dive to. All right. So this expedition would be a manned piloted mission, and India would join the elite club of 6 countries which have been able to develop this technology. Because it's not easy to carry out these deep diving missions. Is that clear? Even though there is a clear strategic angle attached here, you can establish your diplomatic influence, your military influence through such missions. You can gain economic advantages by exploring these resources. But despite all the strategic angle attached to it, the geopolitical angle attached to it, India here is not competing, or we are not in a race with the other countries. The Ministry of Earth Sciences has made it clear that our primary mission objective is to serve a public utility. We have a very pragmatic objective in mind. We are not blindly looking to get into a race with China or US or any other country. That's a secondary objective, in fact. The primary objective is to ensure that this complex and expensive mission will serve a public purpose. It should benefit the common man in India. This was the exact vision which drove India's space program as well, that was led by ISRO even during the heights of the Cold War. When the Cold War was raging between the US and the Soviet Union in the 1970s, these superpowers got into a space race where they were launching multiple satellites, exploring the lunar surface, launching these expensive missions which wouldn't serve any immediate purpose to humanity. But ISRO adopted a different path during the space race. Throughout 1980s, 1990s, ISRO focused on those missions which could economically benefit India, which could aid the socio-economic development of India's remotest poor regions. That's why most of the initial missions of India, the space missions, they were focused on exploration, resource management. They helped in mapping out the resources of India, in helping farmers, in helping fishermen, thus serving the needs of the common man. These expensive missions, they need not be a waste of money and effort. They need not just be for prestige. They need not just be for geopolitics and strategic advantages. So India set a unique precedent during the Cold War by prioritizing public utility and economic objectives under its space program. On similar lines, India will be doing the same with the Samudrayaan mission. The primary objective here is to serve a public purpose, to help the common man. How will Samudrayaan help the common man? If Samudrayaan mission helps in exploring the resources, and if we exploit these resources, it's going to create massive economic opportunities for India. Right? India could start exporting these key minerals. Many of the minerals are needed for our own domestic industry. It could boost growth, create more jobs, thus directly benefiting the common man. So we are not obsessed here in competing with China or getting into a race with US and other countries. That's always a secondary objective for India. Because you can't ignore the strategic and geopolitical angle. That is always there, but it's a secondary priority. The primary objective here is to ensure that the mission serves a national purpose. It should boost our economic growth. It should help the common man. So the primary objective here is public utility, and it's a very pragmatic approach of India. Now, if you look at this submersible vessel, that is Mathya 6000, it's a spherical vessel which has been built, and it's going to be a manned vessel as we discussed, and it's been built out of titanium alloy. Titanium is the alloy which has been used to build the outer hull. The outer shell that you see here, the spherical shell, it's made out of titanium alloy. Now this is a very, very important point, especially for your prelims, for science and technology. UPSC could ask you, why titanium alloy is preferred around the world for building manned submersible vessels? It's because titanium alloy has many advantages as compared to steel. Steel might be very strong. Steel might withstand the tremendous water pressure being exerted from the water columns above. But however, steel is heavy. And also steel is vulnerable to corrosion under the influence of saline water. So steel-based research vessels are not ideal for long-term research. It might help you for a couple of missions, but later it will corrode. It is heavy as well. It's going to be very complex to undertake a safe mission if steel is used as a hull material. So that is why steel is often not preferred by most countries who are engaged in deep ocean mission. Around the world, there is a preference for titanium alloy because it is light, it is strong, and it is corrosion resistant. This is the advantage of titanium alloy. It can resist corrosion even under the influence of seawater. It's a very strong material. It can withstand the pressure, protect the crew inside. At the same time, it is light in weight, and this hull which has been built is 80 mm thick, which is sufficient to protect the crew from the tremendous water pressure and the inhospitable environment around the vessel. So once we launch the mission, hopefully next year, the Indian researchers who will be part of the crew, they will dive to a depth of around 500 to 2000 meters initially. Later they will explore the deeper parts of the Indian Ocean, diving to a eventual depth of 6000 meters. All right. These missions would be around 12 hours each. It will take 8 hours to descend, another 8 hours to come back, and they'll spend 4 hours in exploring. They'll explore the seabed, take pictures, they'll use a lot of sensors to capture scientific data. It is also equipped with robotic arms through which material can be collected from the seabed. Is that clear? So all such exploration scientific activities will be conducted for around 4 hours. Then the crew will come back and the ascent will take another 8 hours. So these are going to be quite long journeys. That is why the vessel has to be built appropriately to ensure the safety of the crew. That is the top priority here. So India is also establishing itself in this domain, and that is why we should understand the Samudrayaan mission in complete detail. So here I have explained why titanium alloy is preferred for long-term maritime research, especially underwater research. The NIOT was actually struggling initially because in India there were no commercial manufacturers of such titanium hull. And finally, NIOT found an ally in the form of ISRO. ISRO already specializes in metallurgical research. It develops various metals which are crucial for space missions, and titanium is already used extensively in our space mission. So ISRO has developed the metal, the alloy needed, fabricated the hull which was needed. It has collaborated with NIOT for the Samudrayaan mission. All right, almost 60% of this vessel, the Matsya 6000, has been built indigenously. It's been manufactured in India. Only few components have been sourced from outside, such as sensors, advanced cameras, communication systems. Only these components have been sourced from other countries, from global international vendors. Rest of it, the key systems, especially the frame, the titanium hull, the ballast system to keep the pressurized water, and the whole pressurized casing, all of this has been indigenously built in India. So that is why the mission is very important, even for our exams, for both prelims and mains. The topic in itself is very, very relevant. All right. So now, let's move on to the second article from page number 1. The topic is relevant to internal security. There have been a lot of adverse developments happening in Punjab of late. All of a sudden, you might be reading reports of an uptick in violence, an uptick in extremist activities. We recently saw that a notorious extremist group called Waris Punjab Day resorted to massive violence in Punjab just 3 weeks ago. In fact, if you remember, on the 24th of Feb, in our Hindu analysis, I had given a heads up about possible attempts to revive the Khalistan movement in India and abroad. In the heads up section, we had discussed about a possible attempt to revive this extremist movement in India and abroad, which might pose the biggest threat to India's internal security. This was because a radical group called Waris Punjab Day, headed by a very controversial figure, Amritpal Singh, resorted to massive violence on the 23rd of February. They targeted a police station to secure the release of one of the members of the organization. They resorted to massive violence, targeted the police, and even went on to raise slogans of Khalistan, calling for Khalistan's breakaway or independence from India. So this brings us to the question of what is Khalistan movement? What is Waris Punjab Day? Who is this figure? Who is Amritpal Singh? Because yesterday, Indian security agencies, including Punjab Police, have launched a massive operation in Punjab. It's a sensational development because 78 pro-Khalistan elements have been arrested, and the police and intelligence agencies are hunting for Amritpal Singh, who is currently absconding. He is essentially a pro-Khalistan leader, a radical preacher who heads this outfit called Waris Punjab Day. India feels that there is an active attempt underway since the last 15 years to revive the Khalistan movement. There is again a Pakistani angle involved here, and Indian intelligence agencies believe that Pakistan's ISI, Pakistan's intelligence agency, could be backing leaders like Amritpal Singh. This is not just a one-off phenomena. There have been a spate of incidents in the last 15 years in India and around the world, in Canada, in Europe, in Australia, which indicates that active attempts are being made by Khalistan sympathizers to revive this dormant movement to destabilize India, to destabilize Punjab in particular. So let's understand more about this controversial figure. This might very well become our biggest security challenge in the coming years. So let's see what is this outfit, what developments have happened in the recent past, and let's also look at the history of Khalistan movement briefly. It's very, very important for your mains under internal security. As I told you, Amritpal Singh, you can see him in this image over here. He has become a very controversial leader and he has gained a lot of popularity mainly on social media. Since the last 2-3 years, he has become quite prominent on Facebook, on TikTok and few other applications. And especially during the farmers' protests against the farm laws, which have now been repealed. When massive protests were going on by farmers in Punjab, individuals like Amritpal Singh, they made a lot of anti-India content. They projected this as a rebellion against the Indian state, and they gained a lot of popularity on social media, and he started emerging as a leader of the Khalistan movement. Slowly, Indian agencies have observed that Amritpal Singh has become more and more radical day by day. He is known to have connections with various Khalistan terrorists, including terror groups like International Sikh Youth Federation. He was in Dubai for many years, and reportedly he was in contact with top Khalistani terrorists, including the leader of International Sikh Youth Federation, which is a designated terrorist organization under the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. Indian intelligence agencies also believe that Amritpal Singh might have had contacts with Pakistan's ISI while he was in Dubai. So there have been credible reports coming out from the Middle East, from other countries, from India as well, indicating that Pakistan's intelligence agency might be behind these attempts to revive the Khalistan movement. We have seen many concerning developments in Italy, in United Kingdom, in Germany, in France. It's happened in Australia, it's happened in West Asia and in Canada and US. So these are not isolated events. This is not a coincidence. There is a connection here, and it's a fair assessment to indicate that active attempts are going on since the last 15 years to revive this dead, dormant movement to create a big threat, a security threat for India. Amritpal Singh, he became more popular during the farmers' protests, and he started backing the controversial actor Deep Sidhu, who lost his life in an accident last year. Right? Deep Sidhu, he supported the farmers' protests. He even became quite popular after he hoisted the Nishan Sahib flag, which has been used by Khalistan elements as the Khalistan flag. He hoisted the flag at Red Fort on Republic Day in 2021. Following this, Deep Sidhu became quite popular. A lot of radical elements started organizing under him. And incidentally, Deep Sidhu lost his life in a car crash last year. Following his death, the other members of the group, right, that is Waris Punjab, they remained active. This group was founded by Deep Sidhu. And Amritpal Singh, who sees Deep Sidhu as his leader, as an inspiration, he came around to lead this outfit. And in the last few months, especially since the last 8 months, he has become quite notorious. He's come back to India from Dubai, and he has emerged as the leader of this extremist group called Waris Punjab. Amritpal Singh, he styles himself as Jarnail Singh Bhindranwale, one of the notorious Khalistan terrorists of the 1980s. So the 1980s was a brutal decade for India. It was a very violent decade in Punjab, especially when we saw the peak of Khalistan insurgency and terrorism. So this group called Waris Punjab is a pro-Khalistan outfit which has indulged in pro-Khalistani activities, especially under Amritpal Singh and even to an extent under Deep Sidhu, right? There have been calls to revive the Khalistan movement, and this group has been involved in violence, in attacks against the police. It has raised the so-called Khalistan flags, and it has given a call for reviving the movement. Amritpal Singh in particular, he styles himself as the notorious Khalistan terrorist Jarnail Singh Bhindranwale, who was known for leading the movement in the 1980s. He made the sacred Golden Temple his base and started accumulating hundreds of terrorists in the Golden Temple in the 1980s. India eventually had to carry out a military operation to secure the Golden Temple, to liberate the sacred Gurudwara from the terrorists, and Jarnail Singh Bhindranwale was assassinated. So Amritpal Singh looks at Jarnail Singh Bhindranwale as an inspiration. He styles himself based on this controversial terrorist, right? And Indian agencies have reasons to suspect that Amritpal Singh and his group, Waris Punjab, they do have links with Pakistan's ISI and with designated terror outfits like International Sikh Youth Federation and other Khalistan groups. Now let's explore this topic a little further. Let me take you through the history of Khalistan movement, because I'm sure many of you may not have the background. Let me just give you that extra details here, help you understand what Khalistan movement is all about and why this was the biggest threat for India at one point of time. See, after India's independence, as India, Pakistan were created on communal lines, the Sikh community, which faced a lot of persecution in Pakistan, most of them, they fled to India, came to India as refugees. They suffered immensely during the communal violence as well, during the partition. So most of the Sikhs who came to India, who migrated back to India and settled in Indian side of Punjab, they very well integrated with the Indian Union. The Sikh community is a very peaceful community. The Sikh religion itself is a beautiful religion, a peaceful religion. Rather, any religion for that matter is a peace-oriented faith. But in every faith you find these strands of extremism where vested interests, they misinterpret their own faith, their own religion, or use religion for their political reasons. For their political vested interests, there will be these extremists in every strand of religion who give rise to an interpretation of extremism. Right? The Sikh community has contributed immensely to India. Very much, the community has been an integral part of the Indian state. Right? From the Indian army to the bureaucracy to Indian politics, Sikhs have contributed immensely. Majority of them are peace-loving, not just in India but around the world. Because Sikhs have a very strong diaspora community. They have a very big foreign presence in US, in Canada, in European countries. Today in West Asia, Australia as well, New Zealand and Southeast Asia. Right? Most of the members of the Sikh community are peace-loving, they are pro-India, they have no issues as of anything. But there are these extremist elements who have laid the foundation for a radical ideology calling for a separate nation to break Punjab away from India, which is essentially a separatist movement. We saw the initial rise of this movement in the 1950s itself, immediately after India's independence. Some of the political elements, led by a few parties like Akali Dal, they gave a call for Punjabi Subha movement, or the Punjabi cultural movement, calling for unique demands and statehood demands for Punjab, and these were seen as unreasonable demands by India. When India was being reorganized internally, when linguistic states were being created, as per the recommendations of the Fazal Ali Commission, the States Reorganization Commission, the leaders of Punjabi Subha movement, led by Akali Dal, they demanded that Punjab should be made an exclusive state for Punjabi-speaking people. They demanded exclusive autonomy as well. Now, such exclusive demands were not feasible for India because linguistic division was only on administrative basis. It was only a practical ground to reorganize the Indian states. But in the case of Punjab, if an exclusive autonomous state was created for the Punjabi speakers, it would have a communal angle to it because the language is linked with the Sikh community. It would essentially mean a communal division within India, and hence the government of India rejected this demand. India went on to trifurcate the state. Punjab was a very large province that we got after partition. So it included parts of Haryana, parts of Himachal Pradesh and parts of and today's Punjab. So India went on to trifurcate the state, and this was not liked by the Punjabi Subha movement leaders. They felt that India was targeting the Punjabi community, the Sikh community, while there was no genuine intention to cause any hurt to the Punjabi community. Then came the question of Chandigarh, the capital of Punjab. The Punjabi Subha movement demanded Chandigarh should be the sole capital of Punjab. But government of India couldn't accept this again. It was unreasonable because there was no other viable capital city for Haryana, which was a newly formed state after Punjab was trifurcated. So accordingly, Chandigarh was made a union territory and a joint capital, which created resentment amongst the extremist leaders of Punjabi Subha movement. Then came the question of Indus Water Treaty that we signed with Pakistan in 1960. India got the eastern rivers, Ravi, Beas and Satluj. Right? We got majority share of the eastern rivers. So when sharing of the waters of Ravi, Beas and Satluj came up, the leaders of Punjabi Suba movement demanded a greater share for Punjab. An unfair share was demanded. Now the government of India could never agree to that because these waters were equally important for Haryana, for Himachal Pradesh, for parts of Delhi NCR region as well. So a fair sharing of these eastern rivers was provided as per the terms of the Indus Water Treaty. So all these issues that happened in 1950s, 1960s was misused by these extremist leaders of Punjabi Suba movement. They had this perceived sense of injustice. They assumed that India was targeting the Sikh community. They built a strong political base based on this by blaming India for targeting the Sikhs, and they started breeding resentment within the Sikh community. This started reflecting in other countries as well, especially after the Anandpur Sahib resolution was adopted in 1973. At the sacred Anandpur Sahib Gurudwara, some of the leaders, which included few radical elements as well, they met at Anandpur Sahib Gurudwara and came out with a resolution. Through this resolution, they submitted a list of demands, political and cultural demands, which again were unreasonable and couldn't be met by the Indian state. So this was used as a ground for indoctrination, for radicalizing the Punjabi youth, the Sikh youth, and to promote the rise of a separatist movement, a violent separatist movement. Parallelly in Europe, under few extremist leaders like Jagjit Singh Chauhan, the so-called Khalistan flag was raised in Germany in 1970s. Khalistan was declared as independent from India. So abroad, amongst the Sikh diaspora, few extremist elements kicked off the Khalistan movement, and parallelly, the movement started in India as well in late 1970s. Around the same time, there was something happening in our neighborhood, that is in Afghanistan. In Afghanistan, Soviet forces had invaded the country in 1979. This was the peak of the Cold War. So US was looking to target the Soviet forces, and it colluded with Pakistan to launch a covert war against the Soviet forces. Soviet Union had invaded Afghanistan to counter the American influence, to keep Afghanistan under Soviet influence. But as Soviet forces occupied Afghanistan, the US saw this as an opportunity to strike back at Soviet Union. It aligned with Pakistan's ISI, the CIA and the ISI, the intelligence agencies of US and Pakistan. They raised the Afghan Mujahideen as a resistance force by radicalizing the Pashtun community of Afghanistan. They indoctrinated them, trained them, gave them weapons and funds, and essentially created a terror infrastructure along the Afghanistan-Pakistan border. This was in early 1980s. So now Pakistan had become critical for the US and the Western countries in this covert war against the Soviet Union. Pakistan was playing a direct role in training the Afghan Mujahideen to fight the Soviet forces in Afghanistan. So as a result, Pakistan was a key ally of the Western countries. They wouldn't care what Pakistan would do with all the funds and the weapons. Pakistan by this time had sworn revenge against India for 1971. When India split Pakistan into two parts and liberated Bangladesh, Pakistan had sworn to take revenge against India by bleeding India through 1,000 cuts. It meant Pakistan was looking for opportunities to destabilize India, to launch a covert proxy war against India. And this was the ideal opportunity. 1979 was the right moment for Pakistan to meddle in India. It created a direct link between the Afghan war and the destabilization that was happening in Punjab. It supported the Khalistan extremist groups which had taken root by then. It used the same terror infrastructure along Afghan-Pakistan border to train the Khalistan extremist outfits. Several Khalistan terror groups were born by late 1970s. Khalistan outfits like Babar Khalsa International, Khalistan Commando Force, and many others were set up in Punjab. They had foreign support as well amongst the diaspora. Pakistan would directly support them, support the leaders, give them shelter in Pakistan, take them to the terror camps where Afghan Mujahideen were being trained, give them funds and training, and more importantly, Afghan drugs were pumped into Punjab with the help of Pakistan's ISI. This was a drug-fueled insurgency. The Khalistan extremist groups, which were now fighting a separatist, insurgent, terrorist war against India, they were looking for recruits. So, to radicalize the youth, to indoctrinate the Punjab youth, they used drugs as a medium. And also, drugs would fetch revenue. Trafficking drugs into India on a large scale would fetch money for these extremist terror groups to fund their terror activities. and Pakistan again played a direct role. It used Afghan drugs. Afghanistan has always been a hub of drug production. Afghan drugs were pumped into Punjab on a massive scale with the help of Khalistan extremist groups, thus creating a direct link between organized crime, that is drug trafficking, and terror financing. So this very quickly escalated into India's biggest security nightmare. And by early 1980s, we saw massive attacks being carried out by Khalistan outfits. In Punjab, they would target the police stations, target ministers, carry out many attacks in Punjab, hijack aircrafts in India. A lot of aircrafts were hijacked during this period. Similarly, extremist activities were noted in Europe, in Canada and US as well. Then, a controversial leader known as Jarnail Singh Bhindranwale rose to prominence. A religious preacher, he was widely popular. He would go on to occupy the sacred Golden Temple, the sacred Gurudwara, and turned the peaceful place of worship into a place of terror. Started accumulating terrorists and weapons with the support of Pakistan. So eventually, India was forced to intervene. The then Indira Gandhi government ordered a controversial military operation called Operation Blue Star in 1984 to flush the terrorists out of the sacred Golden Temple. Eventually, in this operation, hundreds of terrorists were killed, including Jarnail Singh Bhindranwale. And later, this created a lot of resentment amongst the Sikh community. As the military operation caused damage to the temple as well, to the Gurudwara, this was seen as an attack by India on the sacred shrine. It was seen as an attack on the Sikh community itself. So few members of the Sikh community started getting radicalized even more in Punjab and also abroad. So a call was given to assassinate the Prime Minister, as she was responsible for ordering Operation Blue Star. And eventually her own bodyguards, who were radicalized with the Khalistan movement, assassinated Prime Minister Indira Gandhi in 1984, which led to the devastating anti-Sikh riots in India. Thousands of innocent Sikhs were slaughtered by the mobs, especially in Delhi and in other parts of India. This brutal episode of targeted violence against the Sikh community enraged the Sikh community around the world. Now, popular support came in for the Khalistan movement, and there was a massive escalation in Khalistan terror. Across European countries, in Canada and US, a lot of support was mobilized, and even here Pakistan's ISI was playing a role. The ISI was supporting the rise of Khalistan movement in Europe, US and Canada by supporting the diaspora community. So by mid-1980s, this had turned into a security nightmare for India and the biggest challenge for India. So then India started mounting its counter-response, counter-assault. First, we strengthened our internal security along the international border. Border security was strengthened to prevent the infiltration and smuggling that was happening freely from Pakistan. The BSF, the Border Security Force, played a key role in securing the borders to tackle drug trafficking, to prevent the infiltration of the terrorists from across the border. The Intelligence Bureau would play a key role in generating valuable domestic intelligence to target these groups. And the Punjab police was given tremendous powers to carry out counter-insurgency and counter-terrorist operations. The controversial AFSPA, Armed Forces Special Powers Act, which is in force in Northeast India and in Jammu and Kashmir, was extended here as well, thus giving special powers to the police and security forces. Along with this, another controversial law, the TADA, Terrorist Activities and Terrorist and Disruptive Activities Prevention Act, was brought out in 1985 to primarily counter such insurgent and terrorist activities. These controversial laws gave tremendous powers to the police and security forces, and under the leadership of legendary police officers like KPS Gill, the then DGP of Punjab Police, and other top officers like Julio Ribeiro, India launched massive covert operations in Punjab targeting the Khalistan outfits. So a lot of Khalistan elements were eliminated in Punjab under AFSPA and TADA. And a lot of allegations also came up regarding human rights violations by the security forces. That is why this period was a brutal period, and especially TADA became very controversial for its frequent misuse by the police and security forces. Eventually, TADA lapsed in 1995 as it came with a sunset clause. It was supposed to expire in 1995. It wasn't extended further because by then we had wiped out the Khalistan movement. These laws, they argued that they gave the required legal backing to the forces to counter the movement, But allegedly, it has also enabled human rights violations on a large scale, as these laws gave tremendous powers to the police and security forces. Parallelly, it has been reported that India launched covert operations as well through Research and Analysis Wing in Pakistan. It's been reported that under the then Rajiv Gandhi government, RAW was asked to launch counter operations in Pakistan targeting the ISI and its links with Khalistan groups. We get to know about this in the writings of B. Raman, who is a former special director of RAW. He was a senior IPS officer who has headed the counter-terrorism desk at RAW. He has written this book called Cowboys of RAW. In this account, he details RAW's covert operations in Pakistan targeting the ISI and its links with Khalistan groups. Through these operations, India imposed a heavy cost on Pakistan as well. Essentially, for Pakistan's covert war in India, there was a counter-attack by India by putting pressure on Pakistan. B. Raman calls it tit-for-tat operations. For every attack in India, there would be a counter-attack in Pakistan. For this purpose, RAW had reportedly raised two covert units called CITJ and CITX. And through this, India put a lot of pressure on Pakistan as well to cut off the Pakistani support to the Khalistan elements. Plus, India actively engaged in diplomatic efforts to get the support of the Western countries, because initially Western countries were hesitant to act against these groups. As the Sikh diaspora was very influential, right? They even formed a vote bank for many parties in Western countries. They weren't willing to help India or work with India. Plus, during the Cold War period, India's ties with Western countries had been badly affected. But finally, India got support from the Western countries due to our diplomatic efforts, and also after the bombing of a Air India flight called Air Kanishka. Air Kanishka was an Air India flight coming from Canada to India. This flight was bombed by Khalistan terrorists. At that point, this was the biggest terror attack on an aircraft. More than 300 people were killed, not just Indians, but also Western nationals. Americans, Canadians, Europeans were also killed in this massive attack. So following the bombing of Air Kanishka, then the Western government started helping India. Their security agencies, intelligence agencies worked with India to cut off the support present in these countries. The local elements, the Khalistan elements were targeted, and very quickly India brought down the movement, and by mid-1990s it became a dormant movement. That's how India succeeded in tackling the Khalistan threat. This was the biggest threat for India in 1980s. Within a decade, we managed to almost wipe out the movement and made it a dormant movement. Following this, ASPA was revoked and Punjab became very stable, very peaceful after that. But since 2010, after 15 years of dormancy, we have been seeing deliberate attempts to revive the movement, and India believes Pakistan is again behind this attempt to revive Khalistan movement. As Pakistan is under tremendous pressure to not target Indian cities, to not use groups like Lashkar and Jaish against India, it is likely using Khalistan groups to create new problems for India. This is the assessment of many analysts and experts. And this is not just one-off incidents. These are connected events which are happening around the world. In the last few years, we have seen many incidents in Canada, UK and Italy pointing towards the revival of Khalistan movement. For example, recently when UK hosted the Cricket World Cup, during a cricket match, right, where India was playing, a Khalistan flag was flown by an aircraft over the stadium. This was beamed live across televisions. In Italy, recently a referendum was held, a so-called Khalistan referendum in northern Italy. You have a strong Sikh community there, and a so-called direct election or a referendum was held, voting where people largely voted for Khalistan, that is to break Punjab away from India. We have seen an online campaign as well on social media. There are active attempts taking place. In 2020, there was a so-called online election that was held where people were asked to vote for Khalistan. In Australia, very disturbing events have been coming up, right? Pro-Khalistan groups have made a resurgence. They have been attacking Indian temples. The Hindu temples have been defaced. Indian community has been targeted. And just a couple of days ago, the Indian consulate in Brisbane has been attacked. It's been forced to shut down by Khalistan extremists. It has led to clashes as well between the Indian community and the pro-Khalistan elements. You are seeing with similar developments in Southeast Asia, in Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand. Even there you have a diaspora community. In West Asia as well. So these are very concerning developments for India. Similarly, we have noticed attempts to revive the movement in Punjab, Haryana and Himachal Pradesh. In the last couple of years, Khalistan flags have been raised in several parts of Punjab, Haryana and Himachal Pradesh. So this is a very, very serious national security threat for India, and hence India is acting as soon as possible. India has been keeping a check on all these developments, and India is trying to counter these developments as well, and hence Amritpal Singh is being hunted by the security forces. India is likely to go very strong against Waris, Punjab and other extremist groups. We are seeking help from other countries as well, and if they don't cooperate, it's going to affect our ties with those countries as well. For example, India-Canada relations were badly hit because of the revival of Khalistan movement. So India would expect the Western countries to work with us, share intelligence with us, help us to curb this extremist movement. All right? So this is the basic idea you should have about the history of Khalistan movement and its links with the current developments. Now, moving on to the third article, we'll talk about a very important concept called net neutrality. The net neutrality debate has been triggered again by the telecom service providers in India. So you should know what is net neutrality. It's a very important concept as far as economy is concerned. It's related to polity and governance. It's linked with science and technology as well. So let's see what is net neutrality. What is the demand of the telecom and internet service providers? And what's the conflict they are having with the tech companies and the OTT platforms? See, net neutrality is basically a concept, a principle of non-discriminatory treatment on the internet. It means internet service providers or telecom service providers, they should not discriminate against any platform, any website. They should allocate the same internet speed, the same bandwidth to every type of internet traffic. Is that clear? Be it any platform, any website a customer is trying to access, they should have the same internet speed and bandwidth without any discrimination against certain platforms and certain websites. This essentially is the principle of net neutrality. It's a core principle to promote competition, to prevent monopolies. Because if net neutrality is not followed, then ISPs, internet service providers who have a natural advantage, they can monopolize the internet. Let me explain how. Let's take a small example. In India, which are the big telecom players? You have Airtel, Jio, Vodafone, etc. Correct? All these service providers, now they have launched their own OTT platforms. Airtel has its own platform for streaming music and movies. Jio has Jio Cinemas to stream movies, web content, etc. There are competitors of these OTT platforms such as Netflix, Hotstar, Amazon Prime, etc. Now, what if Jio or Airtel allocate a higher bandwidth, a higher speed to their own applications while discriminating against their competitors such as Netflix, Amazon Prime and Hotstar? If this is done on the back end, now as an user, your experience will be affected. Now let's say I'm trying to watch a movie on Netflix, and if the internet connection is not good, if I'm not getting good resolution, I may not be interested to continue watching Netflix. At the same time, on the same network, if Jio Cinemas is working better, if Airtel platforms are working better because they have been discriminately given higher speed, I might have an inclination as a consumer to prefer watching content on these platforms as the speed is better, the quality, the resolution is better, right? So user experience can be manipulated by these companies, by the telecom and internet service providers, because they have a vested interest. They might promote their own products and discriminate against their competitors. Or they might enter into agreements with certain companies, create a monopoly for themselves on the internet content, provide higher speed for these platforms while deliberately slowing down the speed and bandwidth for their competitors. Now this is an unfair practice, unfair trade practice, right? It's not a level playing field. It will destroy competition, lead to monopolies. Eventually it will affect the consumer because the prices will go up. Quality will be compromised when monopolies are established. That is why net neutrality is a core principle of the internet. It is very, very essential to keep the internet free and open. See, the internet is largely a democratic platform, a free and open platform, a peer-to-peer decentralized network. But certain companies, certain entities, they do have a larger control on the internet, and ISPs in particular, who provide the telecom infrastructure for your internet services, they do have a great control on the internet. So the fear is big companies, big ISPs might misuse their monopoly to target their competition, to preferentially give treatment to their own products, to promote their products with higher speed and better internet while discriminating against their competitors. So to prevent this, net neutrality concept has come up. It's been made a mandatory obligation. In 2016, the TRAI, Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, which regulates the telecom sector, made it a mandatory obligation to follow net neutrality principle. All cellular operators in India have been forced by law to follow net neutrality. Is that clear? In 2016, the TRAI clearly ruled in favor of net neutrality. This is the very essence of a free and open internet. It promotes competition, allows competitors to thrive as well. But recently, the Cellular Operators Association of India, they have brought up a new demand. This is a industry level organization representing Bharti Airtel, Vodafone Idea and Reliance Jio, the three major ISPs of India. They have come together. They have been demanding that platforms like YouTube, WhatsApp, Netflix and others, which are consuming most of the internet, they should pay a usage fee. They should share their revenue with the ISPs. This is the demand that the Cellular Operators Association of India has brought up. Their argument is that we are creating the infrastructure. These apps, these tech companies, these OTT platforms, they are consuming most of the internet, most of the data, right? Most studies have shown large part of the internet is largely driven by YouTube, Netflix, WhatsApp and other such applications. So the argument of the ISPs is that these companies are using our infrastructure to grow. They are consuming majority of the internet. So it's only fair for them to share a part of their revenue with the ISPs as revenue for using their infrastructure. They're calling it data usage fee. They're saying we should impose a fee on these companies. The tech and OTT companies should share a part of the revenue to these ISPs as a revenue. This is their demand. So this demand has reignited the debate around net neutrality. This topic comes up because the tech companies and OTT platforms feel this is unfair. This could violate the principle of net neutrality. The Broadband India Forum, which is a industry level organization of internet firms such as Meta, that is previously Facebook, Google and others, they have formed a collective group called Broadband India Forum. They have approached the Department of Telecommunication, countering the demand of the cellular operators. This is a grouping of your telecom companies on one side and the tech companies and the OTT platforms on the other side. Alright, now telecom companies are asking for greater revenue. They're asking for a share of the revenue, whereas tech and OTT platforms are defending it. They're saying this can't be provided because if such a usage fee is imposed on them, it would be unfair for the companies. It will result in revenue loss for them. Because according to the tech companies, like let's say Google or Meta or Netflix or any other OTT platform or tech platform, they say that even we are creating infrastructure. We are not simply using the infrastructure of the internet companies. We are investing in data centers, laying undersea submarine cables, setting up content delivery networks or CDNs through which the streaming services are providing you the content. This infrastructure is created by the tech companies and the OTT platforms. So it's not just ISPs who are creating the infrastructure, right? So this is the argument of the tech companies and the OTT platforms. So both have run into a conflict. They've approached the Department of Telecommunications, and the DOT has said in 2018 that implementing net neutrality is a mandatory legal obligation as part of the unified license, which is given to all telecom service providers and internet service providers in India. All ISPs, right, on the mobile operators who win the spectrum license to provide telecom internet services, they have a legal obligation to follow net neutrality. This has been mandated by the DOT since 2018. But the cellular operators, they have argued that charging a usage fee, charging this revenue from the companies is not linked with net neutrality. They are saying net neutrality is about non-discriminatory treatment of the content. They are saying that internet speed should not differ for various websites and platforms. That is net neutrality. They are saying there's nothing wrong in asking for a share of revenue as a usage fee, and they're saying this is different from net neutrality. But internet activists and the tech firms and OTT platforms, they don't agree with this. They are saying that if a revenue is charged, if a usage fee is charged for using the network, then it will break the very foundation of the open internet. It essentially would allow the ISPs and telecom operators to establish their monopoly by charging this revenue fee. So what is the way forward? If both sides have this conflicting argument, what's the way forward? See, we first need to understand that both the entities are dependent on each other. One cannot survive without the other. Now, Google cannot survive without the ISPs. ISPs cannot survive without these large tech companies and OTT platforms. They both need each other. They are both dependent on each other. This is where the government could come up with a solution. The government should strike a compromise with them, highlight the importance of net neutrality. As pointed out by several experts, if ISPs are allowed to charge a usage fee from the tech platforms, it will breach net neutrality principle, because it will allow the companies, the ISPs, to target the tech companies, affect their revenue. It will give them an opportunity to promote their own platforms going forward, thereby creating an unfair market. That is why they are arguing the government should step in. It should compensate the ISPs, the telecom providers, through the Universal Service Obligation Fund. Since telecom operators are incurring a lot of expenditure in creating the telecom infrastructure, they are saying that the government should compensate the ISPs through the Universal Service Obligation Fund. This is a fund set up through the new telecom policy of 1999, under which the ISPs are contributing a part of their revenue to the government. They deposit a percentage of their revenue into this fund called Universal Service Obligation Fund. It's under the Department of Telecom. And this fund is used by the government to provide internet connectivity, telecom connectivity in remote areas, in rural areas and in backward areas, where companies cannot reach out, where they don't have a market base. Government will reach out first by using the funds collected from the companies. So it's like a pool of funds which has been created by the government under the new telecom policy of 1999. So experts are suggesting that as a way forward, the government can use these funds to compensate the telecom operators and internet service providers, instead of them asking revenue from the tech companies, because that would breach net neutrality. So that is the argument being made by many analysts and experts. The same issue has come up at the global level as well. Even in European Union, the European telecom operators are demanding revenue from the tech companies. The same has come up in US, in Australia as well. In the US, there is a internet rights advocacy group, a civil society group called Electronic Frontier Foundation. This group has argued that if ISPs are allowed to charge revenue, charge a usage fee on the tech companies, it could breach net neutrality. It's very well established that if network usage fees are charged, it will become a tool for the ISPs, especially the large companies, to exert their monopoly, to kill competition, and to further entrench their monopoly, thereby stifling competition and affecting the consumer experience. It could increase the cost of these platforms and these services as well. They would use this to hurt the tech companies by charging high revenue, high usage fee on them, thereby creating an opportunity for the growth of their own companies, their own products, right? So this could be unfair for the tech companies and OTT platforms. That is why they are arguing that the government should step in, probably compensate the telecom operators through the Universal Service Obligation Fund. That is one of the suggestions. As of now, the Indian government is holding back. We are looking at the international trends. We are looking at what happens in Europe, in US and in other countries. We will draw lessons from that and then maybe come out with a policy. But until then, this debate, this conflict between the telecom operators and the tech companies is likely to continue. And this has implications for the concept and principle of net neutrality. All right? So this completes my detailed discussion on the important articles of today's newspaper. Now, let's proceed to talk about the prelims related articles. Let's look at prelims bites. There are 4 important articles today. On page number 10, we have an article related to Indian society that refers to the Jewish community in Andhra Pradesh and India. This could be a possible question from Indian society and Indian history. The article says there is a small Jewish community in Andhra Pradesh. You can find them in Kottareddypalam in the Chebrolu region of Guntur district, and also at Machilipatnam in the Krishna district. Just remember these locations, just remember this basic fact. This is where you find a small Jewish community. It's a Telugu speaking Jewish community. They believe that they are part of the Beni Ephraim, or one of the lost tribes of Israel. Because historically, since ancient times, from the Holy Land of Jerusalem, Jews have migrated to parts around the world. As they have faced a lot of targeting and discrimination, Jews have often fled the region. They have moved and migrated to many other parts of the world. So there are many Jewish communities found in different parts of India. So here in Andhra Pradesh, there is still a question whether these Jews, as they claim, are they genuinely from Israel or not? This is not still very well established. Some of the locals argue they are actually from the scheduled caste. They already have the scheduled caste status. They are simply claiming to be Jews so that they can get an opportunity to go back to Israel to lead a better life, to get better opportunities. That is a criticism or allegation against them. But this Jewish community is defending this because recently a genetic study was conducted in this region. The genetic study conducted by the Center for Cellular and Microbiology concluded that this community does not have Indian lineage. Their Indian lineage has not been established. It means they have come from the outside. At the same time, their Jewish connection, their Israeli connection also has not been established. So there's still a question mark. So the article is referring to the plight of this community. See, Israel has a policy of repatriating the Jewish community from around the world. In the holy Jewish book, the Torah, it has been mentioned that the separated community members should be brought back to Israel, to the sacred homeland around Jerusalem. The Israeli government, since 1948, since it was established, Israel has this policy in place to arrange for the return of the Jews from around the world. From India as well, a lot of Jews have been repatriated. They have gone back to Israel and settled in Israel. So Israel does this around the world. Wherever Jews have migrated, it tries to bring them back. It's a part of its policy. But here the question is whether this community in Andhra Pradesh is genuinely a Jewish community from Israel. They say that they came here 3 to 4 centuries ago, but the studies have not been conclusive yet. It has just shown that they are not of Indian lineage. They could be of foreign origin, but however, their Israeli connection has not been firmly established. So that is why some locals are alleging they are simply claiming this to get the benefits of moving to Israel, getting rehabilitated in Israel. They say that these are just scheduled castes. Alright? But however, studies also have shown this community, which claims to be the Jewish community, they actually speak the Hebrew language. They celebrate all Jewish festivals. Alright? Their diet is kosher. They follow the kosher diet. Just like Muslims follow the halal diet, right? The Jews follow the kosher diet. So all these practices are seen within the community. So it's not still firmly established whether they are from Jews, whether they'll be taken by Israel. But Israel's government is in touch with the community. The Israeli embassy has provided some benefits, some assistance to this community in Andhra Pradesh. That is why this community is in news, and you should also understand the different Jews present in India and where they are located. In India, there are different pockets where the Jewish community can be found. They can be divided into 3 distinct groups. Alright, there are 3 different groups of Jews in India: the Cochin Jews, the Bene Israelis, and the Baghdadi Jews. They have been categorized differently based on where they are located and depending on the time and the historical context in which they came to India. Alright? So remember that we have 3 types of Jewish communities: the Cochin Jews, the Bene Israelis, and the Baghdadi Jews. They are mainly settled in Mumbai, Kochi, Manipur, Gujarat, and Kolkata. Alright? Those who are settled in Maharashtra, in Mumbai, they are the Bene Israelis. Those who are settled in Kerala, near Cochin, they are from Kochi. And towards the eastern parts of India, towards Kolkata and Manipur, there you find the Baghdadi Jews. This is the geographical distribution. In Maharashtra and Gujarat, you find the Bene Israelis. In Manipur, in West Bengal, you find the Baghdadi Jews. Alright? And in Kerala, in Cochin, you find the Cochin Jews. So based on their historical context in which they entered India, based on the place where they are located, right? They have been classified into these 3 categories. Recently, these communities were in news because just few months back, around 3,000 Jews from Manipur have left for Israel. Israeli government has accepted them. They are being repatriated. They have moved to Israel and settled over there. Many Jewish families from Cochin as well, they have been repatriated by the Israeli government. So thousands of Jews, they have left India recently, especially from Manipur and Kerala, and they have settled in Israel. So related to these Jewish communities, I have added some important points over here, some important basic facts. I want you to take this as an exercise. Read more about these communities, read about their history, the context in which they have entered India, and also read about the claims they have made, because some of their claims have not been firmly established. Some have claimed they entered India because they suffered from a shipwreck. Their ship got damaged in the sea many centuries ago and they entered India. That is a claim by one of the communities, the Beni Israeli community in Maharashtra, in Mumbai. Right? Some claim, for example, the Cochin Jews, they are believed to be the first entrants into India. They came many centuries ago after they faced persecution, religious persecution in Jerusalem. The more recent are the Baghdadi Jews. These were traders and merchants during the colonial period. They settled in different important colonial port cities like Kolkata, Rangoon and others, and they have remained over there. So these are the three different classes or communities of the Jews who are found in India. They have a very different, unique history behind them. So just go through these basic facts, because there could be an art and culture question, a history question, or maybe just a basic society-based question on the Jewish community. All right. Now moving on, next we have an important development in the India-Bangladesh relationship. Yesterday, Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, they have inaugurated an oil pipeline between the two countries. So let's see, what is this pipeline? Where does it pass through? What purpose does it serve? It's called India-Bangladesh Friendship Pipeline. It's an oil pipeline project that was launched in the year 2018. It was launched by the two leaders in 2018, and it basically connects the Siliguri region of India, which is the choke point, the chicken's neck of India. Over here, India has few oil refineries in West Bengal, Assam region. So from here, oil is being supplied to Bangladesh. So this pipeline is roughly around 131 kilometers in length. Only 5 kilometers of it lies in India, near the Siliguri corridor. The rest of it, more than 120 kilometers, is in Bangladesh. It is seen as a vital pipeline to fulfill the energy security needs of Bangladesh. It will transport diesel from Assam's Numaligarh refinery through the Siliguri corridor into the Parbatipur region of northern Bangladesh. It's seen as a vital connectivity project. It will boost economic relations and people-to-people relations between the two countries. All right. Next, according to this article from page 13, Prime Minister Modi has launched the Global Millets Conference. Yesterday, Prime Minister Modi has launched the Global Millets Conference, which is being hosted by India to promote research and awareness regarding millet crops around the world. See, this year has been declared by the United Nations as the International Year of Millets. It was India's initiative which led the UN to declare this year as the International Year of Millets. Along with this, we have launched a global research initiative called MIRA, Millets International Initiative for Research Assistance. The MIRA initiative has been launched to promote research and development in millet crops, to promote awareness about the benefits of millets. Millets are extremely beneficial. They are even called as nutri-cereals because they are packed with nutrition, packed with micronutrients. Millet crops such as foxtail millet, finger millet, ragi and pearl millet and various other millets, they are widely grown not just in India but also across Asia, Africa and even in some developed countries. Millets are known to be highly nutritious. It's a traditional food of various communities. Since centuries, many traditional communities in Asia and Africa, they have been consuming millets. It is extremely nutrient rich, and along with this, it is very useful to make the soil and the ecosystem resilient to the impact of climate change, disasters, droughts, etc. These crops, they consume very little water, they are naturally drought resistant, they can withstand the impact of climate change and global warming, and they also strengthen the soil, they increase soil fertility. So they have tremendous benefits, they are easy to grow, easy to cultivate. And in India, multiple states produce various millet crops. For example, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Rajasthan, they are the top producers of jowar, which is the top millet crop consumed in the world. Even developed countries like US produces jowar on a very large scale. Then with regard to bajra, another popular millet crop, Rajasthan, UP, Haryana, they are the top producers. So there are at least more than 13 states and union territories in India where millets are cultivated extensively. So India wants to promote the cultivation. We want further research and development to happen. We want greater awareness to be created for its adoption. Right? The government of India has labeled the Nutri cereals as Shri Anna, as sacred grains. Essentially, the government is treating it as sacred grains, as it could boost the economy, help the farmers, increase their income, plus serve a nutritional purpose to address malnutrition. And it could help in restoring ecosystems as well. That is why India is working with UN and the global community to promote millet research and millet cultivation. Alright? So in this regard, we have launched the Global Millets Conference, which is in line with the objectives of International Year of Millets. Now coming to the last topic, the predator drones, the MQ-9A Reaper and the Predator drones. These are some of the most advanced unmanned aerial vehicles produced by the United States. It is designed and developed by a defense company called General Atomics. It's an American defense manufacturer which produces the MQ-9A Reaper and the Predator drones. The MQ-9A Reaper was recently in news because over the Black Sea, this American drone was brought down by a Russian Sukhoi 27 fighter jet. This marks a serious escalation between Russia and US, and one of the unique instances, rare instances where US and Russian forces have directly engaged in a combat-like situation. A US drone was conducting surveillance in the Black Sea, monitoring the situation of the Russia-Ukraine war. And this Reaper drone was targeted by a Russian fighter jet. US has claimed the Russian jet adopted unprofessional practices. It dumped fuel as well on the drone, thus polluting the Black Sea, and it later collided with the drone, which led to the crash of the drone in the Black Sea. So this became a high-profile incident that increased tension slightly between US and Russia. Now the important point to understand here is that it's an unmanned aerial vehicle. It's an armed drone as well. It can fire precision missiles at targets. It's an American drone developed by General Atomics. And this drone has an Indian connection. The Indian Navy has already procured 2 of these drones on lease. From General Atomics, we have procured 2 Reaper drones on lease, and we are using it for surveillance in India. And there is a proposal to procure 30 more drones, Reaper and Predator drones, to India. These drones have been very effective, not just in intelligence gathering and surveillance, but also in launching precision strikes or surgical strikes. The US Armed Forces and intelligence agencies, they have used the MQ-9A Reaper and Predator widely in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Yemen, in Somalia, and in many other conflict zones to target terror groups. They are known for their precision strikes using the armed missiles, and hence they are a force multiplier. So Indian Navy is already operating a couple of them on lease. We are planning to procure 30 more in the future. There's still no clarity on the deal. The deal has faced some delays, but India has a long-term vision to procure these American drones, the Reaper and the Predator, for the Indian Armed Forces as well. So you should be familiar with the basic details regarding this drone. Alright? So this brings my discussion to an end. I hope it was a fruitful, productive session. I've tried covering all the topics in complete detail so that you don't have to go back and read the newspaper again. You just spend 1 hour 15 minutes with us. We guarantee you that you don't have to read the newspaper. So now take up these questions for your practice, these mains questions. Write an answer. It's all based on what we have discussed. All the necessary points that in the right structure, in the right order, have been discussed in the earlier part of the session. I expect you to revise them and write an answer and post your answers in the answer writing portal, for which link has been given in the description. Now don't forget, head to the Telegram channel. You'll have a quiz. Take the questions so that you can revise these topics. So that is it from my side. I hope it was a good, fruitful session. Do let me know how it went. I'll take a look at all the comments. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.